Okay, I want to try to walk you through some of the primary source readings in Chapter 1. The first one, page 4, is from Rudolf Otto, the idea of the holy. And the first thing he points out is that while we associate the idea of something being holy with moral goodness, that's not actually what the concept is in ancient languages. And he talks about Hebrew, Greek, Latin, what the holy is, and really it is something that arouses in us a sense of awe and wonder. Like the feeling you get looking up at all the stars in the night sky, or the feeling that you get from a majestic landscape, like the view from a mountaintop, or from looking at the Grand Canyon, or something of that sort. Um, and that's what he means by awful. Awful here doesn't mean bad, but it is a sense of wonder, amazement, perhaps tinged with an element of fear or dread. It's kind of like, in a way, falling in love, where it's a beautiful feeling, but at the same time, if you have any sense, you are aware that there's also an element of risk in this. Because after all, that other person may not feel the same way towards you. And so the holy is something that is outside of the ordinary. Deserving of our utmost respect and reverence. Take off your shoes, for you are on holy ground. The feeling of, as he puts it, bottom of page 7, overpoweringness, Latin majestas. That feeling of being small in the comparison to this overwhelming something that you face. As I'm recording this, we're expecting Hurricane Laura to move in overnight tonight, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop that. All you can do is to prepare yourself for it. That's that feeling of something that is overwhelming, that is powerful. And the final element he says in this is the element of urgency, that this feeling of awe and majesty demands a response on our part of some kind. He then goes on to describe the phrase he uses, mysterium tremendum, tremendous mystery. In the fuller form, mysterium tremendum et fascinans, the tremendous and fascinating mystery. It is a mystery because it is something wholly other, completely different from us. You know, we often anthropomorphize the divine. Picture God as uh, like us, only more powerful. Um, and that tendency is inevitable, but it is also misleading. Um, God is not like us. And I like the quote from Tierstegen, a God comprehended is no God. A God, um, a holy thing that I can fully comprehend isn't big enough to really be God, to really be holy. There is a sense in which, uh, in encountering the divine, we feel that this is beyond our rational comprehension. It is beyond our logic. We can't put God in a box. And that sense appears in many of the world's religions. For example, in Hinduism, statues of gods are often made with multiple arms as a way of saying that divine power is beyond our level of existence. You know, if any of you have small children, you know that sometimes two hands are just not enough. When our first child was born, I put in a request for an extra set. They never appeared. Um, I think that's why it takes two people to make a baby, is because it takes two people to carry all the crap you got to carry to go somewhere with one. Um, in Taoism, um, uh, there's a saying that the Tao that can be named is not the real Tao. You know, that if you can name it, explain it, label it, describe it, you don't know it. It is beyond our ability to fully comprehend. Um, all we can do is bow in humble reverence before it. Um, the element of fascination, um, although we have these feelings of dread, there is also a feeling of attraction. We're drawn to it. We seek we seek to in some way embrace this. Um, and the closest thing I can think of is if any of you like scary movies. You know, it seems to me, or roller coasters. It seems to me that the attraction of something like that is that it is scary, but it's scary in a way that we know is safe. Um, it scares us, but yet at some level we know we're going to be okay. And there is that element to the divine. Um, I think if you look at the picture on page 4, the ancient Egyptian goddess, actually kind of a dual goddess, Sekhmet and Bastet, captures this idea very well. That, the Egyptians actually were the first people to domesticate cats. And if you are a cat owner, you know the cats moved in of their own free will. You don't really own a cat. in the same way that you own a dog. Cats are famously independent. But the Egyptians welcomed them because the cats ate the rats that would eat and spoil the grain that they stored. Okay, so the cat is the protector. But there is another side to that personality. Sekhmet the destroyer, who's depicted as a woman with the head of a lioness. You know, the Egyptians did not have our modern biology, but they were not fools. They could see that a lion is a really big and dangerous cat. Okay, they could see the resemblance. And so, you want to stay on the good side. You want to see her in the role of Bastet, the protector. You do not want to get her ticked off so that you see her in the role of Sekhmet, the destroyer, the goddess of war, famine, flood, any kind of destruction. I saw a T-shirt in a catalog one time that captured this idea. It was obviously intended for a woman. It said 51% sweetheart, 49% bitch. Don't press your luck. You want to stay on her good side. The second reading 1.2, comes from William James and the Varieties of Religious Experience, and he's talking about mysticism. Mysticism is the experience of union with the divine. In Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, this is described as oneness with God, where you are so caught up into God that you lose yourself. Or it can also be expressed as being filled with the Spirit, that God so fills you that there's no room left for you as a separate being. It's like God is completely filling you. In some religions, this is described as being possessed. And I gave you a picture, figure 1.4 on page 13, of this state in a religion called Santeria, which is a mix of West African and Spanish Catholic beliefs and practices. It's akin to the more familiar voodoo, which is, or Vodou, voice of God, which is a mix of West African and French Catholic. I think you'll see some of this in some of the videos that you'll be looking at a bit later. He describes this mystic experience with 4 characteristics. The first is that it is, page 14, ineffable, meaning you cannot adequately put it into words. It cannot be described so that a person who has never had the experience will really understand what it is. I mean, how would you describe the color blue to a person who was born blind and so has never seen anything? The second is that it has a noetic quality. That it brings a kind of knowledge that is beyond our ordinary rational knowledge. if you think about it, our what we ordinarily call knowledge of facts, of information, is objective. There's a distance, a separation. I know that Barack Obama was the first African American president of the United States. That's a kind of objective at a distance knowledge, knowing about something. But if I were to say I know Barack Obama, is that referring to the same kind of knowledge? Does the word know mean the same thing in the sentence I know Barack Obama as it means when I say I know that Barack Obama was the first African American president? In fact, in some languages, these are two separate words. German, for example. Objective knowledge, knowledge of facts, of information, analytical, rational knowledge is Wissen, ich weiß. In fact, the German word for science is Wissenschaft. But the second kind of personal, direct, intuitive knowledge is kennen. Ich kenne. Ich weiß objects. Ich kenne a person. Okay? It's a different kind of knowledge. The other two characteristics that he discusses are transient. That is, it comes and goes. Mystics don't have this experience all the time, or even most of the time. It's an occasional thing. And the fourth characteristic he lists is that it is passive. That it is a sense of being overwhelmed by something else. This is how this links to Otto's concept of the holy. Okay? That to put it in our terms, this is not something you do to God, it's something that God does to you. It's not that I possess God, it's that God possesses me. It's not that I fill God up, it's that God fills me. And this is why mystics in all the world's religions will often cast themselves in the female role. Both the Christian mystic Bernard of Clairvaux and the Muslim Sufi mystic Rumi describe it this way, but they also have a tendency to cast themselves in the feminine role because it is a passive experience. And he talks about other things, that ways that this mystical experience can be induced. He talks about nitrous oxide, laughing gas, producing this kind of thing, and it can be induced chemically. With nitrous oxide, with peyote, in early Hinduism with soma. He points out, bottom of page 15, that this mystical truth, this noetic truth, exists for the person who has the experience, but not for anybody else. It's not really subject to verification. It is intuitive, internal. The mystic experience creates, as he puts it, a sense of optimism, a positivity, the feeling that ultimately the universe is friendly, that this mysterious power of the holy is benevolent rather than hostile. And it tends, he says, towards monism, towards seeing everything as ultimately one. That comes out most clearly in Hinduism and Buddhism in their mystical experiences, but you also find it, for example, in the Sufi poet Rumi, who applies this to the idea of different religions, that any religion can ultimately lead you to a glimpse of God. Okay, hopefully that helps you with the primary source readings for this chapter.